Cinema Podcast.
We're not always doing business, but we're always open.
For a few seconds, this place was Armageddon.
Hello and welcome everybody back to another great episode of the Cult Cinema Podcast. I am Gage.
I'm Ashley.
And today we are still in the year 1999 talking about the Boondock Saints. A personal favorite of mine, as it's one of the few movie posters that I actually have up in my living room.
Oh, it is?
Yeah, it's the prayer that they say before they execute somebody. I think it was a gift from my dad one year, either for my birthday or Christmas or something.
Cool.
Yeah, I was really happy to go back and see this movie. Doing a little bit of research, like many movies that we've covered before, was kind of a bit of a clusterfuck to get funding for and eventually get off the ground. Originally, written and directed by Troy Duffy. He apparently had gotten inspiration for this role after seeing when he was in his mid to late 20s in LA, seeing some drug dealers steal money off of a dead body in the LA streets, which is pretty intense.
Yeah.
But yeah, so he kind of created the story of these two vigilante brothers that would go around executing the corrupt and the evil. And in 1997, I know Miramax ended up offering Duffy nearly $400,000 to write, direct, and even produce a soundtrack for the film, since he was also a musician at the time. I don't know if he's still a musician, but yeah,
no.
Yeah, but at the time, Troy Duffy was basically a nobody, just working as a bartender in LA at the time. So $400,000 is a good chunk of change for your first kind of big break into the movie production business.
Yeah.
But due to issues with both casting and locations and Duffy's kind of erratic behavior, Miramax would end up pulling their deal with Duffy so they lost the $15 million budget that they had given Duffy to produce the film. And that was just a couple months before principal photography was about to start. But eventually, Franchise Pictures would go on to pick up the project and provide Duffy a $6 million budget to produce the rest of the film. So not quite $15 million, but I would still say a good chunk of change. And, $6 million is, I would still say, was adequate enough to pull off a movie that looks as good as it does. So,
yeah, absolutely. It still holds up really well.
Yeah, absolutely. That's pretty much all I had to add for the beginning. I'm ready to get into the scene by scene, unless you have any other opening statements that you'd like to make.
No, except I love Sean Patrick Flanery.
This is the only movie I know him from. I don't think I've seen him in literally any other movie, which seems to be par for the course for a lot of movies that we've discussed in the past.
He didn't do a lot of film work prior and after this, but he's amazing. Nonetheless, he is a really big philanthropist. That's kind of his bag now. So he does a lot of charitable works, especially with Irish communities and things along those lines. So he's just an all-around really good dude. So shout out to you.
Cool.
Yeah.
But besides him, the film, of course, does star Norman Reedus, which this is kind of his kind of acting debut, where him and Sean Patrick Flanery play two very Irish guys with the heavy Irish accents and all, but I wouldn't say that Reedus does a very good job of pulling off the fake Irish accent, because I know clearly Flanery is Irish. I mean, just look at his name, but he does not speak with an Irish accent, and neither does Reedus in real life. So.
No. Yeah. Caveat to the name. He does not. He is not from Ireland.
I would say he does a better Irish accent than Reedus does in this movie, though.
His grandmother is Irish. He grew up around, of course, Irish-speaking people. So, yeah, you're right. Better, for sure. All right, so scene by scene. Like we kind of already said, Sean Patrick Flanery, Norman Reedus, David Del Rocco, Bill Conley, and Willem Dafoe.
Oh, yeah.
Who is clearly my favorite character in
so
this
great.
movie. He does an amazing job.
Absolutely.
Yep. So we open inside a church, clearly in Boston. Obviously a Catholic church as well. We overhear a reading from the priest that is, of course, up at the altar. And we see two young men approach the altar. They walk right past the priest and kneel immediately at the altar. And one of them tries to stop him, but another priest is like, no. We let this happen. Yeah. Basically. These guys, of course, are the brothers, the main characters of the movie, Connor and Murphy Mcmanus. Mm-hmm. We then cut to them at work. They work at a meatpacking plant, and we see Connor kind of fucking with his brother. He hits him with a fish, and, it's a pretty funny little exchange that they have, working together. Mm-hmm. His boss, though, their boss, I should say, walks up and introduces a very large woman. Yeah. And says she's going to be training with them today. And
both of them are kind of like, oh, fuck, okay.
Yeah. They're not, rude to her by any means. But, they don't get along. And eventually we see an altercation and Connor punches her right in the face. Yeah. So... it's a little crazy of an opening scene. This is all, of course, overlaid over the credits. So we just kind of jump right into it. Yeah. We then see them back at their apartment or loft or whatever you want to call it. It's a shithole, but it is what it is. But then we're quickly at a bar, of course.
Of course, because it's St. Patty's Day.
It is. It is.
Everybody's Irish
Day.
On St. Patty's Day.
Indeed. The bartender, who's another amazing character, has Tourette's. So he randomly shouts out inappropriate things at all times and makes everyone laugh. Which I won't talk too much about the second one. Although it's good, it's not nearly as good as this one. But there's a scene in the second one, because I immediately watched the second one after I watched this one the other night to take notes. Yeah, I was like, fuck it, I'm watching the second one. But Connor and the guy with Tourette's do this thing where he goes, because Tourette's is obviously a disease that you can't contain your words. Yeah. And just because he swears doesn't mean all people with Tourette's swear, but this just happens to be his thing, and obviously it makes for a really funny character in the movie. Mm-hmm. But Connor always, they do this thing back and forth, and he goes, can someone please, he waits. The old guy says, fuck. Connor says, me. And the other guy says, in the ass. So.
I forgot about that bit. I've only seen the second one once, and that was years ago, and I thought it was okay, but I've never given it a second look. Maybe I should.
It's 10 years past this one.
Yeah.
And supposedly there's a third one.
I don't know if... I heard that there were rumors that a third one was going to be made, but I don't know if it ever was actually a thing, though. But
so last year, or not last year, prior COVID to 2019 Comic-Con, Norman Reedus said there was a third one in, he's had a script for a while and they're just waiting, and I don't know if the same director's on board or what's happening, but I don't know. We'll see.
Because didn't Duffy do the second one as well?
He did. Duffy? Yeah. Okay. Mm-hmm. We then see three very large Russian men walk in to this Irish bar and start threatening them and saying the bar is closing early. They're clearly there to shake down the old man with Tourette's.
Yeah.
But the brothers try to be nice to them initially, offer them a beer. Of course, that doesn't go well. And then we immediately cut to the next day, and we see two detectives at this crime scene where we see the Russian guys from the night before, and they're dead. So there's this back and forth that happens in the movie. If you haven't seen it, which I don't know what you're doing with your life, but see the movie. The back and forth is hard to explain, so I'm not really going to go into it as much as just explaining what happens.
Yeah.
But
because they'll show what the detectives find, and then it'll kind of go into a flashback as they explain, here's how it all played out, and then they actually show the scene.
Right. That's a play on Willem Dafoe's character, which we enter now, Paul Schmecker, and he calls everything, down to almost the minute of what happened in these crime scenes that he's looking at. So.
Yeah. It's like in the Sherlock Holmes movies with Robert Downey Jr., how he's able to like exactly predict his opponent's moves like step by step. Willem Dafoe is like kind of a similar thing where he's able to figure out what happened in a previous event step by step, so he's not really like predicting it, but is still able to easily piece everything together because he's a really good detective or FBI agent or whatever.
Good example.
Thank you.
Yeah. I love that movie too.
Yeah.
I love Robert Downey Jr.
He's good.
So
yeah,
everything he's in, I'm like, okay, I'm on board. So Schmecker basically already knows what happened, but Detective Greenlee, who we'll find out through most of the film, is kind of the idiot of the group. He doesn't say the right things, do the right things, and he kind of is running his mouth as Schmecker is like making fun of him, essentially. And of course, these Russians are from a crime syndicate. That's why Schmecker's here. He is from the FBI. So it's their jurisdiction, quote unquote. He then tells Greenlee to go get him coffee, and he pops in an earbud that's attached to a CD player. Because 90s. And there's nothing else to listen to.
yeah.
He does this every time, though, and this is how he kind of gets his groove and gets into the retelling of the story. And the two other cops, Duffy and Dolly, because Greenlee's going to get the coffee, they kind of watch him and think he's crazy at first, but, you know, it all turns out to be true. So
he gets really into it, earbuds in and all.
He tells the cop where the bullet is. He tells the cop how this guy ended up here, you know, just literally scene by scene of what actually happened. We then cut to the boys, the brothers, inside the hospital, and Doc, the bartender from before, has come to bring them their clothes, but he also tells them the FBI were at the bar looking for what happened to these guys, because the bar's literally around the corner, so probably, you know, bar, event, whatever happened. He has brought them clothes, but they don't change. They just immediately go to the police station.
Yeah.
And we cut back to said police station, and Schmecker is mad because someone leaked this to the press, and it's making them out to be like heroes. And
I don't think it's that Doc brings them clothes, because I remember it's not until later during the press conference where Rocco shows up that he brings them their clothes. I think it's just
You're right.
The bag that gets handed over is from Murphy to Doc because it has all of the money and guns that they pulled off the Russian guys during the fight.
You're right. Thank you. Yeah. Yeah, because you see in a later scene that he does grab all that stuff and throws it in some bag right there by the dumpster. But Schmecker's telling everybody that, look, these guys are long gone. You know, we might not even know who they were. And again, as he's kind of rambling onto this police station full of cops, the boys just stagger in the door. They do sit down with Agent Schmecker, and before he starts recording, the brothers start talking in different languages to each other. I think they know 5 total languages.
Yeah, that sounds about right.
And Schmecker's kind of impressed by this, you know. He offers them cigarettes, and he's like, look, just tell us from the start what happened. So we fade back to the bar the night before, and obviously there's a huge fight. The guys at the bar beat the shit out of these Russian guys, and including Connor lighting one of the dude's asses on fire.
Which is funny because we see them as, like, you know, next morning when they come to find the Mcmanus brothers, like his ass is all bandaged up, which I love how he had time to seek medical attention but not to go home to get a new pair of pants, because you just see like it's clearly just the hole in his pants is just cut out and they're all just wearing the same clothes from before.
Right, and they're all beat up and stuff still. Because yes, that's what happens next. They find their apartment, they walk in. They handcuff Connor to the bottom of the toilet that is on the ground and bolted down.
Is it Connor? Is Connor Norman Reedus' character, or is Connor Flanery's character?
Connor.
And which one's Murphy?
Murphy. I thought Murphy was Norman Reedus.
I thought it was the other way around. I thought Murphy was. Oh fuck. Oh well.
It's fine. Let's go with Murphy as Sean Patrick Flanery. Sure.
Okay.
And Connor is Norman Reedus. So Murphy is attached to the toilet, and they're, of course, they have guns. They're threatening them. They walk Connor outside of the apartment. And obviously fearing that his brother is going to be murdered, he literally rips this fucking toilet off the ground.
Yeah. Just sheer willpower just lifts it up. Oh,
yeah,
by the way, I did confirm it. Connor is Flanery's character, and Murphy is Reedus' character, so you were right. My bad.
Okay.
You got that right.
Yay. I was like, man, I took my notes completely backwards then.
That's my bad.
Okay, so Connor
Yes.
now ripping the toilet out of the ground.
Yes.
We see him walk the toilet. So not only did he rip this thing off the ground while handcuffed, fucking up his wrist, obviously.
Yeah.
He walks it however far. I'm going to assume it's not too far. They're probably up on the top floor. To the roof. And as they're about to shoot his brother, he hoists the toilet over the side of the roof, hitting one guy. And he jumps off at the same time.
Lands on top of the other guy.
Lands on the other guy. Yeah. It's fucking crazy. And then, of course, he's unconscious at that point. Murphy picks him up and they make their way to the hospital. But not before robbing them, taking their guns in the bag, said bag from before. Okay. We're on the same page now. So we flip back to the police station, and again, they're talking in languages to each other. They kind of wonder who turned them in, but it kind of roundabout wraps up that nobody really turned them in. It's just the press got wind of this and kind of made them out to be something more than they thought was going to happen. And Schmecker asks if they want to talk to the press after giving their statement, and they're like, actually, no. Can we just stay here, basically, so we can just let this blow over? And right then, an officer walks in, and he's all excited, and he's like, yeah, can they stay? And Schmecker's like, well, I don't know. Ask your mom if they can stay the night.
Your friends stay the night.
Right. It's... His humor in this movie is... I don't know if I've ever seen Willem Dafoe in a role that I'm like, this is funny.
Yeah.
You are funny.
Because he's always, very, either super serious or super creepy in any other roles that I've seen. But this,
Agreed.
This he kind of has a little bit of both going for it, but this is the first that I've seen him in, an actual, or he's actually being comedic and funny on a regular basis.
Yeah. Of course, there is a creep factor to his character.
Yeah.
I think that kind of just comes along with the fact that you cast Willem Dafoe.
Right, and it just kind of comes with his general facial structure.
Literally, yes. No one's going to mistake you for anybody else ever in your life. He does tell them they're not under arrest. It sounds like it was self-defense, and we cut to the chief kind of addressing the said press that's outside. We do see Rocco in the crowd, and like you said before, he has brought them clothes and their giant rosaries, which are very Irish and very ancient looking. They're wood, which I'm Catholic, not Catholic now, but I was raised Catholic. A wooden rosary is old.
Yeah.
Really old. They don't even make those kinds of rosaries anymore. So just goes to show where it came from.
Cool.
We see them, though. They have stayed the night. They are going to stay the night in jail. Rocco leaves. And throughout the night or before they wake up or whatever, we hear, again, more Bible versey type stuff. And then they shoot up out of their sleep and water's dripping all over them. And this is supposed to be the moment where, God talked to them and told them what to do and, their calling for the movie.
Which the movie doesn't come off as, being supernatural at all. But, this is the one scene that you get where it's okay, they both have woken up at the same time, have clearly, heard the same message or gotten the same message somehow. So it's...
Well, that's alluding to the saints portion of this movie.
Yeah.
So it's a pretty known fact, again, through religion. Most religions that have saints in their religious practice, I would say, which isn't many. I think it's only Christian and Catholic. That's how you become a saint. God talks to you. You do the word of God, essentially, and then you eventually are named a saint. So I think that's just playing on that fact
Sure.
of the movie. So they get dressed, get some coffee, clean up, obviously, too, as well throughout this process. There's a pager in the bag, and that starts going off. So Connor sees it, calls the number. He speaks Russian, so it's fine. And they basically just give him all the information, thinking it's the guy who's... They don't know he's dead yet, obviously. So we then cut to Rocco, and he's walking in his boss's office because he actually rolls with the Italian mob. So, and this is where we get the most random fucking cameo of the movie. Ron Jeremy.
Oh, yes. I forgot about that.
Plays this, like, minion. Yeah. Gross-ass Ron Jeremy's in this movie.
But it's, like, such a perfect role for him, though. Like, just being the short, tubby, slimy Italian that he is.
Yeah, he does a really good job, for sure. His boss is on the phone, though, and it's dead silent in this room, and then all of a sudden his boss starts yelling at the top of his lungs in Italian and swearing at this person, and, you know, it's all very Italian.
Yeah, it's the most, like, stereotypical, like, Italian mob boss kind of persona.
Absolutely. Yeah. His name is Joe, though.
Papa
and
Joe.
Joe asks Rocco to tell him a joke because apparently everyone calls him the funny man. So he's like the Joker of the group.
Which I guess
Rocco.
I didn't know. I'm not familiar with his work besides this movie, but I guess David Della Rocco was actually like a stand-up comedian that was popular at the time.
Yeah, he was. He's from Queens, and he was he did a really good stand-up stint for sure, I would say. Yeah. He kind of stutters around and tries to get this joke out, which is very racist, but it does make everyone laugh, including the boss, so he's good at that point. Then as soon as Rocco thinks he's in the clear, his boss says, "Tell me another one," and we just cut away. So, yeah. We then see Connor and Murphy, and they're in some sort of like hideout basement type thing, and they're there to buy guns and supplies.
Yeah,
so
trading all the shit that they stole off the Russians to buy their own gear.
The dude basically throws them empty bags and is like, "Whatever you want, here you go," and pops open like a hidden door, and there's, you know, fucking guns everywhere. The only funny or notable thing about the scene is where Connor's talking about the fact that they need rope, and they have this rope argument.
Like,
but
they always have rope in the movies, and they always use it.
Right. Well, get your fucking rope then. And right before we cut to black, we see Connor and Murphy arriving at a very nice hotel. They are geared up in their, you know, looks like they're going to rob these guys, masks and everything. And then we cut to black and we see Schmecker answer the phone, and he's in bed with another young man. This whole like side tangent of Schmecker's character.
Yeah, he's the most homophobic homosexual.
Right. It's so weird.
Yeah. Someone who
like, why even
I've
bother?
Never seen someone more uncomfortable with their sexuality.
Right.
Yeah.
I don't understand. It doesn't come into play in any other way except to make like homophobic jokes that aren't, you know, that are
it's
gross.
like, oh, funny, because basically what we're getting at is like there's a lot of scenes where Schmecker is, you know, sleeping with another man, and so like, but he'll be at a gay bar and he'll like make say homophobic slurs. And I guess it's supposed to be like, oh, haha, gay man said funny slur word kind of thing, and I think that's just supposed to be the humor out of it, which I mean, I guess is very late 90s, early 2000s mindset, but
yeah, that's fair. And again, if a black person says slurs to them, if homosexuals say slurs to them, that's not slurring them as a people. When we say it, that's a slur. So again, he's playing a gay character and saying these, you know, I don't know. I just don't see the point. I don't even see the point of making him gay, personally.
I think, like I said, I think it's just so that they just pull this single joke where it's, you know, it's a gay man just being homophobic, and that's in itself is supposed to be funny.
Just
or
saying.
Ironic. I don't know. But yeah, I see what you mean, how it is like unnecessary, but whatever.
Yeah, it again, just unnecessary. So after he gets this call, clearly it's another, dead people come running call. We cut to a hotel room where there's just a fuck ton of dead dudes everywhere. And again, we see Schmecker break down the crime scene almost to a T. We pan around the room and we see 9 bodies, and they have pennies on their eyes. That's also a significant Catholic thing, which they kind of get into a little bit in a second. The cops do anyway. It's not like they haven't seen it before. And the cops, Duffy, Dolly, they finally are like getting kind of the layout of what Schmecker does and how he's seeing these things, and they're kind of looking at it the same way he is. And they mention there's clearly 2 shooters, And then we cut back to seeing the brothers in the elevator and then crawling through air ducts just to get to this hotel room. And they kind of lose their shit a little bit in the air ducts, which is funny.
Yeah.
Because they fight each other.
Because it's like, because all of their knowledge of like espionage and violence is like, and they reference it themselves. It's like what you see in movies, in action movies, and what Smecker would call bad television. Because it's like it's shit that you wouldn't see a traditionally professional hitman do, at least in this universe. But
no, and they're not criminals.
Yeah.
They haven't been criminals. The only reason they're doing any of this stuff again is because they've had this calling from God to rid the earth of all these, terrible men.
Just a couple
So,
poor
of
Irish
course-
dudes from Boston just trying to make their way.
Yeah. They don't know what the fuck they're doing.
Yeah.
Even in the second one, where they've had, this experience and they've done these things, it's definitely more clean in the second one, the way, the fight scenes lay out and things like that.
Right.
But it's still not great. They're not professionals.
Yeah.
That's the best way to put it. This obviously makes the air duct break, which of course they fall right through into the hotel room with all the, bad guys, let's say. And the fucking rope did come in handy because they get stuck on said rope and it tangles in a way that allows them to spin around the room and shoot all the bad guys.
Yeah.
So, and it's a really cool shot.
It is.
I think it holds up.
It's really sweet. But it's
Yeah.
just like one of those things where most of their success from this, any scene where they go out and they kill all these mobsters, it's like most of the time it's just pure luck that they manage to get out of there or manage to pull it off. Which again, you could like tie back to like if these guys are supposedly saints that are, being told by God that they need to do this. If you want to look into it further, it's probably if say that God does exist in this movie's universe, that it's probably God giving them those powers because.
Well, protecting them
Yeah,
too,
protecting
really.
them, yeah.
Because, they bumble their way through every one of these until the end when they're, we'll get there when we get there. But until the end, it's all a bunch of, it's a clusterfuck of things that just happen, for sure. They do get lucky, you would say. Then we finally see them make their way to the boss, gets him on his knees. And, of course, the very famous prayer, I will try to repeat it in fun facts. I'm not going to do it now.
Yeah.
But they say it, shoot him, lay the pennies on his eyes. We cut back to Schmecker, who says it looks like, again, bad television, just a show. This wasn't planned well. Even with the rope that's still hanging from the ceiling, this is like a clusterfuck.
Yeah.
We cut back to the brothers, and Connor is giving Murphy shit about the rope, again, because they did, in fact, need it. And we see a case on the table in this hotel room. This is right after they've shot everybody. And it's full of money. So, of course, they're going to take it. They then hear the doorbell ring to the hotel room. And they weren't expecting anybody else. So they go up to the door, look through the peephole, and it's fucking Rocco.
Yeah, just as room service.
Yeah. So they immediately are like, we have to fuck with him.
Yeah.
So they yank the door open, pull him in, and make, put their guns in his face, freak him out. And then they rip off their mask, and Rocco, sees what's in the room, and he's like, holy fuck, you guys did this? And they're basically like, well, yeah, I mean... And now they kind of have to tell Rocco, the whole thing and what's going on.
Yeah.
We then cut back to Smecker, who's telling the other police officers that, these guys are all big-time bosses. So to know that they would be in this location at this time is kind of a big deal, and how they get that information. We then see a woman reporting on all the events. She's kind of popping up throughout the movie, and it does look like real news footage.
It does.
Yeah. I mean, I know how they got it, but still, it looks real. We then cut quickly to Rocco's apartment, and again, they're just kind of breaking down the whole thing to him and what they're doing. And basically, these guys are always doing horrible things and getting away with it, so they just think they should be cleaning up the city. This is their calling. And Rocco is fucking amped.
Yeah.
He is like,
I mean, he's a little skeptical
board.
because he's like, you guys are just going around killing people that you think that are evil. Isn't that a little, psychopathic? And they're like, yeah, but God told us to do it, so it's okay. And Rocco's like, fucking hey, let's do it.
Plus, we're not prejudiced. Like, if someone came to us and was like, this is terrible, kill this person, they'd probably do it.
Yeah.
So, they all proceed to get fucking shit-faced drunk, though, and mess around with each other, of course, with guns, which is not safe. And this scene always fucking kills me. I know it's coming. I don't want to see it, but I know it'll make me laugh, too, which is also fucked up.
The cat.
I have like a hot and cold relationship with this scene for sure. Because I don't ever like when animals get killed in movies.
Right.
I don't think it's, no cats were harmed in the making of this movie,
right.
but, So anyway, yes, the fucking cat. So that's what happens next. They're fucking around with the guns. There's a gun sitting on the table. There's a poor cat right in front of the gun, and Rocco hits the table, discharging the gun, and kills the fucking cat.
Splattering its entire body just against the wall next to him.
Yeah. And Connor and Murphy lose their shit because they did not see that coming.
And this is supposedly Rocco's girlfriend's cat.
Yes. Which he starts cussing her up and down.
Yeah.
He doesn't give a shit about her, really. But, they're not happy that the cat was killed,
right.
so I guess there's that. We then see Rocco kind of tell him to clean up the cat stuff and pick up a little bit. His girlfriend's going to be home soon, and he leaves. And then we cut to a few hours later, and these women arrive home. I should say one of them's the girlfriend, I guess. One of them's her friend, maybe.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Something like that.
They're clearly fucked up, though, because they stumble in the house, and but the first thing they do is look for the cat. So that's terrible. And if you kind of pan over, because you see Connor and Murphy sitting at the table as they stumble in the apartment, they didn't clean up any of the blood behind them on the wall. They put a fucking Polaroid picture up.
Oh, I didn't even notice.
Like a small little Polaroid on the wall where the blood stain is, and that's it. Clearly they got rid of the cat body or whatever was left of it, but that's it. So basically everybody falls back asleep, though, and then we just see Connor kind of opening the case of money, and Rocco bursts in the door freaking out, screaming at the top of his lungs, telling the brothers, I have to get out of here. I did a fucked up thing. And both girls start yelling at Rocco and start yelling about where the cat is, and he just screams back at them, I shot your fucking cat. It's terrible.
And he's like, I will, and she's like upset that Rocco killed her cat, but he's like, I will shoot myself if you can tell me that cat's name right now. Because obviously she can't, because she clearly didn't give a shit about the cat. She's just being mad at Rocco for the sake of being mad at Rocco.
Yeah. Which is clearly the kind of relationship they have. Yeah. Rocco and the brothers storm out of the apartment, though. And they're like, what the fuck happened? What's going on? And we cut back to Rocco. And he went to some sort of diner. Or a restaurant or something. And he met up with two other guys that clearly knew that he was being set up for that Russian job. Let's call it that, I guess.
Yeah, because the main point that they make is that the gun, because Rocco was apparently set by his Italian boss to take out those Russians as well, but there was 9+ people in the room and he only had a 6-shooter. So the theory is that his Italian mob boss set him up knowing that he wasn't going to make it out of there alive.
Right, which you wouldn't, obviously.
Right.
Even if you've shot all 6 people, there's still 3 left.
Yeah.
So anyway, but these two guys are joking about it, and that just pisses him off, and he shoots them. And then the guy at the bar, because apparently he knew about it too, and it's just a whole clusterfuck. Rocco did not think this through whatsoever.
And wasn't masked like the brothers usually are.
Right. And he left witnesses, which of course is also bad. So initially the brothers are like, dude, you're a fucking idiot. You know, they give him a bunch of shit. They tell him that, you know, the Italian mob doesn't give a shit about him. And even though he's been working for them for years, you know, and Rocco's visibly upset about a lot of this. He's clearly built a relationship with, you know, these gangsters over how many years. But then they kind of just cool down, and Rocco mentions that Vincenzo, who is Ron Jeremy, you know, well, fuck them. We got to kill them too then. If you're going to kill Russian mob, we should kill the Italian mob. And Connor's basically like, I mean, sure. That sounds good. Let's do this.
I'm strangely uncomfortable with it, he says.
Right.
Or strangely comfortable with it.
Strangely comfortable. And Murphy just doesn't care. He's like, yeah, fine.
Yeah.
Let's do this. So Rocco tells them that Vincenzo always goes to this nudie bar called the Sin Bin every Thursday night, and that's where we can, like, you know, get him. And Connor says something now about, well, we always get some kind of guidance on where we're going next, and Rocco's like, I'm your fucking guidance.
Yeah.
Like, I'm here to
help. I work
help.
for the fucking mob. You don't think I'm going to know where everybody is at any place?
Right.
Anytime?
And I know their habits. I know where they go.
Yeah.
We could kill everyone. So, yes, we arrive then to the Sin Bin, and it's night now. And we see all three of them walk in. They pull their masks down. And this is kind of funny because Rocco has, like, really long hair.
Yeah.
It's, shoulder length. And when he pulls the mask over, it's, like, sticking out the eye holes.
Yeah. And it's like his mask was, like, the ones that Connor and Murphy have are, like, really nice ski masks, and his basically looks like a sock with holes cut out of it.
Literally. He bought a hat and cut the holes out. And so they kind of give him shit. And he's like, well, fuck it. I'm not going to wear it then. And Connor's like, no. It's really scary. Put it back on. And then they bust in this room through some beaded curtains, and it cuts to black again. We then see Schmecker again enter the same crime scene, obviously hours later. Again, reads the crime scene to a perfect T, only this time they did leave a woman there who is clearly traumatized and upset about what happened. They didn't hurt her, though, so there's that. We then see, again, flip back to the brothers and Rocco there, and we see a screen come up. And they shoot Vincenzo, again saying the prayer. The woman they had pushed into the room and sort of held hostage, she passes out from probably sheer terror of what's happening. And Rocco tries to grab a titty.
Oh, he does.
He does grab a titty,
Yeah.
which is so unprofessional.
Right. And it's just like it's one of those things where it's just like, why does this need to be here? Like, it's not funny.
Exactly.
It's just uncomfortable. I just feel uncomfortable.
And you can tell them titties ain't real. They look straight
It looks
plastic.
like just silicone. Yeah.
Yeah. So it could have been the woman, and sorry to this actress, not that she'll fucking ever hear this, but, your titties look like literally the plastic boobies you buy to put on somebody. Just saying. Didn't have to be there. They give him shit about that, too, which they should, because that's dumb.
Yeah. No, it's just gross. Yeah. Oh, Rocco.
We cut back to the police, and Schmecker starts realizing that all these doors were closed except for this one, because obviously there's glass. That's the one they shot Vincenzo through. And then he starts walking around the room and going, shitty shooting, good shooting. Shitty shooting, good shooting. So we then cut back to what actually happened, and obviously the brothers shoot Vincenzo together. Then they just basically tell Rocco that, well, there's all kinds of sickos in here. They see the money coming through. And not only at this moment have these other people in this, whatever you want to call it. It's a...
Like in this back room.
Now, they were called something... They were legal for a long time. Peep shows. It's a peep show. Where you walk in, there's a woman, she gets naked, you pay money. It's basically a strip club with a glass wall in front of you,
Yeah.
and they jack off, essentially, these dudes. So it's gross, but whatever. And the screen has to come up for you to see the woman. So these other screens are down, except for Vincenzo's, obviously, with the glass. So the cops are like, why would they shoot all these other people not knowing who was in here? And they just also happen to be gangsters. So it's like, they can't really figure out how the luck, again, was here for all these men to end up dying. But, again, it happens. Rocco wants them to teach the prayer to him, though. And they're like, we can't.
Yeah.
It's a family prayer.
Prayer's off limits. Family only.
Yeah, for sure.
I do want to note that Smecker makes a point that there are, like, he could tell the difference between bullets that have come out of each gun when Rocco, like, switches. But they're both, like, 9mm Berettas, so unless they're using different types of rounds in each gun, like, how the hell would they know if he were to just cross his arms if it's the same gun?
I think it was more a comment on the trajectory.
Maybe.
And how sloppy it was. Because if you do cross your hands and shoot guns, obviously the kickback from the gun itself is going to make your shot go,
That's true.
in a weird angle. So I think he's just more commenting on, like, this was a poignant kill. The others seem like random,
Makes sense.
We then see the reporter lady again mentioning the events. And since all these dead guys had crimes committed, they've done bad things, she's like, no one's really, saying anything about arresting whoever did this. So we're just going to move on from here, I guess. We then cut to Joe, the Italian mob boss, and he's requesting a hitman from, I think
he's supposed to be the former Don of the Mafia that Papa Joe is now currently running or something like that.
Okay, that makes sense. Sort of. Except, why is he cleaning the bathrooms?
He's supposedly retired, and I think this is just, like, Joe visiting him at his, like, new place of work or something. I don't know. But yeah, it is weird that a former Mafia Don is now blind and working cleaning toilets and throwing urinal cakes without having to know where he's throwing them.
It's weird.
Yeah.
But whatever. He requests a specific hitman, though. They call him El Duce, which I don't know what that means in Spanish, but it's definitely not at all what you think is about to happen.
I think it's the Duke.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Then yeah. I mean, that kind of makes sense. They're afraid Rocco's going to turn on him and testify, so they actually want the hitman for Rocco, but they realize that they don't think that Rocco's maybe working with whoever's killing all these gangsters, but they still...
I think at this time they think that Rocco is the one that's doing it.
Do they?
Because they were the one that... Because I don't think they know about the Mcmanus twins yet. They think that Rocco was the one that did actually take out all of those, the Russian mafia guys, and then took out those other people in the diner. So that as far as the Italians think, it's all just been Rocco.
Touche. Yes, you're correct. So he wants the hitman to kill Rocco. Mm-hmm. Yes. And again, this old man throwing urinal cakes in the toilet.
Yeah.
Fine. Is like, well, look, he's been in prison for 20 years. Getting released on parole is probably not a reality. And Joe is just like, we're in the mafia. I'll fucking get him out of jail. Yeah. And of course they do.
And immediately cut to him in prison getting parole.
Yeah. Like,
and like
20 years in prison.
Yeah, 20 years in prison. You literally have every single guard in the prison, with this guy in sight as they take him just so that someone can stamp paroled on a piece of paper. It's like, you really think that this guy should be in parole if this is still the level of security you need to have just by moving him from one cell to another room in this jail?
Yep, guess so.
Yeah.
We then cut back to Rocco, and he's telling the brothers that he knows another guy who's even worse than this guy, who was a contract killer. And he picked him up one day and brought him to somebody's house, and he kills the entire family, kids, everything. So, he has no morals about that. But he does know that he plays poker every night somewhere with a bunch of wise guys, and it's his house. Poker at his house, and Connor's like, all right, cool. This sounds great, in our wheelhouse. And killing this guy will make you feel a lot better, Rocco, so we should definitely do this. Again, we cut to the next morning, and Schmecker is outside this home in literally suburbia.
Mm-hmm.
You know, there's kids riding their bikes and shit everywhere. We see the brothers and Rocco cutting back and forth between Schmecker laying out the crime scene and what actually happens. We see the brothers and Rocco in a van down the street. They get to this guy's house. They make the wife open this closed door with a code that obviously she knows, or anyone coming there would know. It's like it's not an apartment. I don't even know what to call this that's back there. Like a barn?
I guess.
I don't know. You really only see the door, but it's definitely behind the house.
Yeah.
Like their main house they clearly live in. So she opens the door, they knock her out, and then they just start mowing down all the guys in the room. But they don't see the hitman. And all of a sudden, you see this bathroom door peek open, and he's there and starts shooting, and then Rocco shoots him, and...
Yeah. I like how he's just,
the
like,
whole
peeping
thing.
out the back, like, peeping through the bathroom door. This random hitman is Murphy was like, oh, he's right fucking there.
Yeah.
He's right
They
behind you.
definitely... Yeah,
Yeah.
definitely didn't see him for a long time. But they struggle. Connor makes Murphy back off so Rocco can kill him himself. But he's losing a little bit, so Murphy sees a pool ball on the floor and just rolls it to him, and he beats this guy to death with a pool ball.
Yeah, because Connor gets distracted by one of the other guys that's still alive, so he executes him. And so,
Yes.
because Murphy sees that Rocco's getting the shit kicked out of him, he tosses him the ball to give him a little help.
Right, which ends up working out for him just fine. But they go to leave, and at this point it's like dawn, maybe, because they definitely entered when it was dark.
Right.
And they come out when it's light. And we see a man walking down the road, armed to the teeth, clearly, and he just starts unloading on all three of them. And this is intercut with clearly the best scene in the movie, where Willem Dafoe is like losing his shit.
Yeah,
and
breaking it down and
dancing
dancing to opera. Yeah.
Yep, it's crazy, and you see bullets flying everywhere, and yeah, it's still a cool shot too.
Yeah, for sure.
That whole thing is. And at this point, we see that this guy who's shooting at them does shoot Connor and Murphy. They both get shot, not fatally, but nonetheless shot.
I think Connor gets
Rocco
shot
gets
in the
his-
leg and Murphy gets shot in the
Yeah.
arm. Rocco does,
Yeah.
he does lose his finger, though.
Rocco loses his finger, which is a fateful mistake for sure. So I forget how the fighting stops, because it's not like they shot the old guy shooting them. But either way,
I think
the
it's
gunfire stops.
Yeah, because I think he might have. I don't know if Duke, if I just call him Duke at this point, if he's running out of bullets, because like really Connor is really starting to stand his ground, because at this point Rocco is fell into the bushes after he lost his finger. Murphy's been shot. Yeah, Connor has been shot at this point, but he's still kind of the last one standing, still kind of getting off a few rounds, and eventually I think there's maybe sirens or something, and Duke runs away.
Yeah, we'll go with that. That's probably what happened. But they also start spraying their blood. That's clearly all over this like house.
Yeah.
With something.
They spray it with
And-
ammonia, so that way
Ammonia,
they can't
yeah.
get good samples. Yeah.
Yeah, we hear it in a second when Schmecker's wondering why it's taking so long to get the blood, and some tech's like, well, we can't get a good sample. We don't know why.
Yeah.
And then they smell it, and of course, it smells like ammonia.
Have you ever smelt ammonia? Like, really smelt ammonia? That shit is so
Oh, yeah.
strong. There was one day I was at school, and one of my friends came up to me, and he just had a bottle of it. I didn't know what it was at first. He was just like, hey, Gage, give this a sniff. And I was just like, fuck it. Okay. I took a huge whiff of it, and I was like out of breath for like a good 20 seconds. It was just
it's
so
harsh.
strong.
Yeah, it's not good. Pure ammonia is fatal,
Yeah.
ingesting it or anything. So don't do that, kids.
Yeah. It was rough.
But spraying it on blood will ruin the sample for sure, too. Yeah. It's like bleach.
Yeah.
You can see that there's blood, but now you can't tell anything about the blood. It ruins all the DNA and everything in the blood. But just as Schmecker is freaking out and upset about the blood, he looks down and sees the fucking finger there that got shot off by Rocco. So He takes the finger. We see him take the finger, of course. We cut back to the brothers and Rocco back at his house. And they're all yelling at each other, thinking, you know, who ambushed them and where'd that guy come from? And
meanwhile, they're also cauterizing their wounds with
that's my next
with just an
note.
iron. Yeah.
They're makeshift patching themselves up. And, yeah, one of them includes cauterizing their wounds with an iron, which is gross.
Yeah. But sometimes I guess you got to do what you got to do.
Hey, it works.
Yeah.
But it's gross. And you probably have an infection.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. Yeah. Rocco, after they're, you know, kind of okay, and Rocco realizes he doesn't have his finger.
Yeah.
He's like, well, I'm a fucking liability, and I should get out of here. And they're like, no. You shouldn't, you know, you're okay. And then he's like, that fucking cop's going to find us. We should just, you know, get rid of him. And they're like, no. He's a good man. He shouldn't be touched. But we do see Schmecker now running the finger. And, of course,
Finds
up
out
pops.
that it's Rocco.
Yep. Up pops his mugshot because he's clearly been arrested before. And he's confused because he's like, this doesn't make any sense. Like, this guy taking out all these dudes. Yeah. So he goes to the bar and gets drunk. And this is another scene of him being very homophobic for some unknown reason.
But
to everyone in this room.
Yeah. But he has managed to figure out that it is the Rocco that brought them the clothes at the police station, and he now knows that it's the McManus brothers are the two other ones that he's working with.
Yes. Sorry, I did not mention that. I got mad about the homophobic thing coming up. But yes, after he sees his face, again, he's a good detective, so he does remember Rocco brought them clothes at the jail. So 2 and 2 together, Rocco knows these dudes. These dudes are in on it. We then see Rocco drive the boys to church. It's clearly very early in the morning. And they kind of limp in. They, you know, they're still going to church for some reason. It's fine. But Rocco goes kind of around the corner to smoke. And we see Schmecker stumble out of the bar, obviously still wasted. But he makes his way across to the same church across the street and goes into a confession. And initially passes out. But then we see a priest come up to get into the booth, and Rocco forces him in there at gunpoint. And initially he's like threatening him, and he's like, look, just call you talk, you know, I'm just here to maybe shoot this guy. I don't know, like he's not even sure of his plan kind of at this point. But Connor sees him do this, so he's like, he goes behind him in the other confessional and punches through that shit and like
it holds
him by the hair.
So now you've got Connor holding a gun at Rocco, who's holding a gun at the priest that is trying to maintain his sanity while Schmecker is giving a confession. Right.
And Schmecker basically is like, you know, I know the legality of these things and what's right and wrong, and I don't feel like they're really doing anything wrong. I think they're actually doing some good, but I'm a police officer, so I shouldn't feel that way. And the priest is basically, again, like shaking and terrified. And he's like, God works in mysterious ways. And if these people are doing good, you should probably help them. And not fully knowing, of course, what's going on.
Yeah.
But, you know, he finally asked Schmecker, though, well, do you think they would hurt innocent people? And he says, no, never. The Irish guys know. The Italian guy, maybe. He's fucking dumb. Yeah. And the priest is like, well, I think you have your answer. And he says, yeah, I need to help them, I think. And he leaves the confessional. And Rocco's just basically like to the priest, don't tell anyone that we were here. And he's like, please just get out of my church.
Just get out. I don't care. Just leave.
Right. Just get out. We then see Connor on the phone with Schmecker, and now they're working together. Because they know that this older guy that tried to kill them is clearly worse than they are. And we then see Schmecker talking to the old man that Joe was talking to in that previous scene. But he tells Schmecker everything.
Yeah.
So either, again, I'm not sure who this person is.
I think, again, I remember because they have like their little title cards when they are introduced, like when any character is introduced. And I remember him saying that he was like the former Don. So I think he is. So I think he is like a former leader of the Italian mafia. So I don't know if it's.
I just don't know why.
I don't know if
why would he be talking to Schmecker?
I don't know if it's Schmecker maybe tricking the guy into thinking that he's like somebody else so that he would give him this information, or if the guy, because he's retired, doesn't really, want to get involved and is just kind of not really on anybody's side in particular. Because it seems like, because when the Papa Joe originally goes to him, he gives him money so that, to give him the information on Duke, and Smecker does the same thing. So I think it's like he'll just give information to anybody as long as he gets paid for it.
Well, that's probably true.
Yeah.
I forgot about the money thing. Yeah. Okay, touche. But he also tells Schmecker that it's kind of late. They already found the guys.
Yeah.
So, they're fucked because the mob's got them. So we cut to Joe's house, I'm assuming. That's what it kind of looks like. And we see a bunch of goons, let's call them that, exit this room. And Joe is basically like, look, we just got to get all the information they have, and then we're going to kill them. Like, I don't fucking care. So we then go back in this, like, basement type area, and Connor, Murphy, and Rocco were all handcuffed to a chair. Initially, they shoot... No, do they shoot Rocco first? I forget.
Well, they shoot... Joe shoots his another finger off.
Okay.
They leave, and it's kind of during this point that Smecker infiltrates and is kind of slowly taking people out dressed as a woman to distract some of them.
Yeah. It's real uncomfortable.
Yeah. It gives one of the goons a real big sloppy kiss, which I thought was kind of funny.
Also uncomfortable.
Yeah. But with that, the Papa Joe talks to some of the other guys, and they're like, well, we think it's the two Irish guys are the brains. There's no way that Rocco is the brains behind all this. So Joe goes in and then executes Rocco.
Yeah, which is sad.
Yeah, shoots him in the chest.
And Connor, he kind of like rocks himself over, and Murphy just like body slams into Rocco basically, and he's crying, and they're upset, and everyone's freaking out, of course, and screaming. And again, Connor rips his hand out somehow from behind his leg. He rips his leg out from this chair that he's handcuffed to, and that's loose. Mm-hmm. So it's like, it's just crazy. Again, yes, this is when we then see Schmecker dressed as a woman walking around the house, but we notice that as he comes around the corner, the guy he was going to kill is already dead. Mm-hmm. So we know there's somebody else also in this room. So after Connor gets his leg loose, he breaks Murphy's wrist to get his wrist out of the handcuffs, or at least he tries to. And then we see the older guy enter the room, and the boys are saying a prayer over Rocco with their rosaries. As they finish the prayer, they pull guns on the guy behind him, and he walks up to them and starts kind of like caressing their face a little bit, and it's their fucking dad.
Yeah, because they can tell.
Didn't know.
Because the Duke, he hears them saying the family prayer, and then he finishes it, and that's why they know that they're all related.
Related, yeah. And maybe initially they don't know it's their dad, but they know they're related. Mm-hmm. You're right. So, but if you think about it, locked up for 20 years, they wouldn't have known him ever. So they finish their prayer together over Rocco, which is, again, very sad. And we just cut to a courtroom, and we hear from the same news lady that Papa Joe is being charged again with a crime, but it looks like he'll get off for the third time. We see Connor, Murphy, and their dad walk into the courthouse. Mm-hmm. Bags are dropped from above, which we see in a minute. It's Duffy, one of the detectives from earlier. Mm-hmm. And, of course, there's guns and whatever they need in them, but they drop them when they get past the metal detectors. Well,
they're walking into the building. They're throwing the bags over top of the metal detector so that they don't set them off.
I thought they fell.
Yeah, I think it looks like they're throwing them over it so that they don't set them off. But yeah, but we do see that the police officers and Smecker are now, or at least the ones that have been working with Smecker investigating this, they're all now working together because they all believe that all these mafiosos should be put to waste. So,
For sure. So we cut to inside the courtroom where Joe is basically like, blah, blah, blah. This happened. I don't care. I'm not going to go to jail. And they bust in the courtroom, start shooting in the air. They don't shoot just random people, of course. And make everyone look their way, basically. And they are, look front, look here. And we see this young girl, like, shudder, and the father goes up to her and he goes, "You must watch, dear." And it's like so creepy, but also like this last scene, if you're a fan of this franchise, you love the final 10 minutes of this movie. It's clearly the best. But I think they got about 2 or 3 minutes. They say back to each other that we see Detective Dolly pull the fire alarm, so everyone else is getting out of the building except for this courtroom. The boys pull Joe out from the witness box, plop him down. They all say the prayer with their father also. So there's 3 guns at this one dude's head. And let me just say, if that happened, no more Joe's face. Like,
his entire head would just be completely blown off, especially because Duke has a shotgun to the back of his head as well.
Yeah, good mention.
Yeah.
Because we see Schmecker looking from a cracked door, looking in the courtroom, and as soon as they shoot, you see his reaction, so whatever those people saw in the courtroom, it's fucking ruined their lives.
Because you can see with just the 2 pistols what they did during like their first attack on the Russians, where like yes, it did leave like big holes in the front of the guy's face, but that shotgun point blank to the back of your head would just like put a giant hole in your head if not blow it off.
The whole head's gone.
Yeah.
Maybe part of the neck too, gone. Everything's gone. Everyone runs out of the courtroom, though, and of course they're met by the press, and we cut to all 3 men in a room, clearly far away, and they kind of ask their dad how far they're going to take this, and he's like, it's not really about how far, it's about having the faith to go as far as needed. And we cut to the same reporter that we've seen throughout the movie, and saying the cops are now looking for these men. We see, a sketch, and the media has dubbed them the Saints. She then starts interviewing people around town, asking what they think of this vigilante type justice, and we're getting mixed reviews. And again, this looks so real.
Yeah.
Like normal news footage. It's kind of brilliant how they decided to make that call.
I saw something where someone made the comparison to this last little segment with all the interviews, like in the first Spider-Man movie with Tobey Maguire, where people on the street are getting interviewed about what they think of Spider-Man, and it's kind of like 50-50. People think he's a menace, and some people think he's a hero, which I'm sure was likely inspired by this scene.
Could be, for sure. But that rolls kind of through the credits, and that's the movie.
That's the movie.
Yeah. It's
very Tarantino-esque, for sure. Very, like, reminiscent of early Tarantino movies, I would say, in terms of, like, the humor that's used, the sheer brutality. I think that's the best way to put it.
Touche.
All right. Well, I've got a couple fun facts here. I'm sure you probably have a couple as well.
Yeah, you said some of mine, which also, whittles that down, so.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
So, as we know, they do find their long-lost father towards the back half of this movie, but the Mcmanus mother was apparently going to play a key role in this movie, as there was some deleted scenes of them on the phone with her, and apparently she was going to narrate a good chunk of the film. But they
that
ended up
been cool.
Yeah, but I guess they ended up scrapping the character altogether to kind of adjust the tone of the film. But
okay.
Alongside that, let's see. Troy Duffy had originally sought Mark Wahlberg and Stephen Dorff to play the McManus brothers, but I know Wahlberg at the time had decided to do Boogie Nights. I don't know what Stephen Dorff was ended up doing, but nonetheless, they ended up going with Norman Reedus and Sean Patrick Flanery. But apparently a couple other actors, including Brendan Fraser and Nicky Katt and Ewan McGregor, were even considered to play the McManus brothers, which I think...
I have a whole different list.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, but I think Ewan McGregor would have been an interesting pick for Sean Flanery's character. But I guess McGregor and Duffy had some kind of falling out at some point. So they didn't make it. And then for the role of FBI agent Paul Smecker, both Kenneth Branagh and Patrick Swayze were considered for the role.
Yeah, I still have a whole different list.
Really?
Yeah.
Huh.
That's crazy.
In terms of the budget, they did get a $6 million budget for the film, but only grossed close to $30K in its 1 week that it had in theaters, which is insanely low.
Yeah.
Of course.
1 week.
Yeah, 1 week in theaters, $30,000. So, but ended up getting pulled. Troy Duffy believes that the poor reception was likely due to the film coming out close to the Columbine shooting incident, which I think, definitely probably would leave a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths seeing that so close to that tragedy.
I have a distribution fun fact about that.
But I think also with the marketing as well, the trailer is very generic late 90s, early 2000s kind of action thriller trailer, with a lot of the movie actually being spoiled in the trailer, in my opinion. Like a lot of important stuff in there. And looking at some of the posters for this movie, they're very much like graphic design is my passion type posters, where they're very kind of not much to them, kind of very boring, kind of cliche look to them. The film was originally set to be filmed entirely in Boston, and while the last few scenes of the movie were, a lot of the film was actually shot in Toronto, Canada, and they managed to complete all of shooting within about 32 days, so just about a month of shooting.
Yeah. There's actually a chain of stores in the scene where they are outside with the Russians' bodies, and it's Henry's, and that's only in Canada.
Oh, really?
So
that's funny.
Like Canadians pointed that out, I guess.
I do have a quote here from Norman Reedus from his show Ride with Norman Reedus, which is one of those AMC side shows that he's on. There's a scene where Sean Flanery comes in and they go to like a gun range. And Reedus has this quote saying that the Boondock Saints was my first major leading role during a phase when I wasn't even sure I wanted to be an actor. But having Sean there as a brother to guide me off screen as much as he did on made all the difference in the world. That and the fact we got paid to take out mafiosos in the most epic way imaginable.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, that's pretty much all I have there. There is a whole like 2-hour documentary on the development of this movie that kind of follows Troy Duffy and how he kind of became, famous overnight from this story and his deal that he originally had with Miramax, and how it all kind of turned into a shit show. And the film, I haven't seen it, but apparently it is notorious for painting Duffy in a very bad light as this. Yeah. All of it was pretty much shot during what Duffy considers to be a very dark time in his life. That's not to excuse any his behavior or any abuse that any of his colleagues may have faced by him during the production of this movie, but yeah, so.
Yeah, the documentary is actually called Overnight, and it was shot by 2 of his really good friends, and he asked them to do that over the course of making this film, which of course ended up taking years instead of however short Duffy probably thought that would be, but he of course didn't see the final cut of the documentary. He didn't see most of the stuff. And obviously, hindsight, you can't really look at yourself in that kind of a light, but he has obviously been quoted as saying it's trash and, But in all fairness, his friends were asked to do that. So, so my list of potential people included Brad Pitt, Ethan Hawke, and Keanu Reeves.
Huh.
That were considered, but...
I could see Keanu Reeves doing this.
I could see Stephen Dorff.
Really?
Yeah,
I can't... He's another one of those actors that I can't... I'm sure I've seen him in some stuff, but his name alone doesn't ring any bells.
He plays... have you seen Blade, the first one?
Yeah.
He's the bad vampire in Blade.
Oh, is he? Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. He hasn't been in a ton of things either. He was, again, one of those 90s actors and then just, fell away. So, The Prayer, which I can read it if you want.
Go for it.
You can... Well, all right. So, in English... because of course they speak Latin.
Yeah.
The entire prayer is, "And shepherds shall fall for thee, my Lord. Power hath descended forth from thy hand, that our feet may swiftly carry out thy command. So we shall flow a river forth to thee, and teeming with souls shall it ever be. In nomine Patre et Filio Spiritus Sancti," which means in your light. The prayer was written by the director. It's not an actual prayer, but the phrase that is tattooed on their hands, Veritas Sequentis, and it's probably on your poster, is actually a Latin inscription of Isaiah 59:14 of the Bible. It's the verse in Latin where you can find something similar to this prayer, which is actually based in scripture. So if you want to look it up, go right ahead.
Cool.
So we kind of talked about how Miramax did initially front some of the money for this film, but then backed out. Duffy basically has said, and so have other people that worked with Weinstein at the time, that he actively sabotaged this man's career after this film wasn't made. And knowing what we know now about that piece of shit, that's probably true.
Yeah.
So
because
Duffy could have had a better career, maybe. We don't know.
Potentially. I mean, the only movies that I know of that he's directed, at least off the top of my head, are the Saints movies. So.
But again, we've seen this, and especially now with women coming forward to talk about Weinstein and how they've ruined their careers. Look at Ashley Judd. Look at who's the other actress? The Tony Soprano's daughter.
Oh, I know who you're talking
That
about, but I
chick.
don't know her name. Yeah.
She was huge in the 90s too, and then, fell out of nowhere.
Yeah.
They're all crediting that as to Weinstein literally blackballing them in the industry. So I could see how this might actually have been true, if Duffy's saying this.
Sure.
So.
And if it's not, it's
Again,
a really good way to try to get away with people not thinking that you're a total piece of shit.
Right. We don't know.
But
it's probably 50-50.
Yeah.
Let's be honest. It sounds like Weinstein and his attempt to foil careers for people weren't nearly as harsh on men as women.
Yeah.
So I don't know. Again, we kind of talked about the Columbine incident definitely stifling the film's release. Distributors avoided the movie.
Yeah.
As soon as Columbine happened and Boondock was supposed to come out, pretty quickly thereafter, they were like, no, we can't. They had it lined up for over 5,000 theaters just for their initial release, and it whittled it down to whatever you said, a couple hundred. I don't know.
yeah, because I was thinking about that, and I was like, well, didn't The Matrix come out in the same year? But Matrix had come out a month before the Columbine incident.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, not great. The church that appears most in the film, so the initial opening scene as well as when Schmecker goes into the confessional booth, is not a Catholic church. It's Lutheran.
Okay.
The Catholic Church condoned this movie.
Yeah.
Big shocker. And didn't want them in their churches.
Yeah.
So they weren't allowed to film there. Ron Jeremy, of course, we spoke about making a famous cameo in this movie as Vincenzo. Sean Patrick Flanery quoted later at a Comic-Con years later that Ron Jeremy made him a mold of his famously large penis and gave it to him as a gift.
Oh, Ron.
Which is gross, but funny, I guess, to give a man.
Is Ron Jeremy still alive? Is he
He's in jail.
Oh, is he? Oh, okay. That makes sense.
Yeah. He raped a bunch of women.
Oh,
shocker.
Gotcha.
So,
Gotcha.
yeah.
All right.
He's in jail.
Okay.
Did he die, though? That's a good question. Goog, while I go continue.
All right. Yeah, I got you.
So with a poor theatrical run, obviously, that we've spoken about, this film was basically in the shitter until Blockbuster got involved.
Oh yeah, it was a Blockbuster exclusive for a little bit.
Yes, it was their first exclusive film that Blockbuster took the time to do a marketing campaign around, threw a bunch of money at this, and therefore huge popularity almost overnight that this movie made. So if it wasn't for Blockbuster, we may never have heard of this film for years and years to come. So it is their highest grossing release in first 6 months of Blockbuster doing this kind of campaign ever. So that's pretty cool, I think.
Ron Jeremy is still alive, by the way. And does he look as disgusting as ever?
Yeah, I'm sure. I would have believed you if you said he was dead, so.
Well, he looks like he might be close.
Yeah. Years after the film's release, Duffy did actually hire a legal team to sue Franchise Pictures that had initially done the financial compensation for the film. He wanted the rights, and he insists that he made $0 from the film. So he couldn't make another one to try to make money unless he got the rights, and of course they were holding that back. So he didn't receive any money he wanted, but they did give him the rights back to the film. So I guess that was good. Yeah. A couple other things that I had here about you mentioned the guy taking the change off the drug dealer. The film also opens with a story of a young woman who was murdered that is based on true urban legend type. The woman was actually murdered. Her name was Kitty Genovese. She was a mob associated niece or something.
But she was murdered in the street, and like it's notorious that a bunch of people in like the alley near where she was murdered had just watched, and it was one of those things that's often taught in psychology, where it's like, are you going to be the one to actually take action, or are you just going to stand there passively hoping that somebody else is going to help de-escalate the situation?
Right. They talk about this a lot to women, especially. Instead of yelling rape, you yell fire, because if you are being raped actively and you yell that, 9 times out of 10 you probably will receive no help. So growing up, you're taught to yell fire. It is an urban legend, though. This didn't really happen to this woman. She was murdered, which is terrible. But as far as being dragged in the street and killed in front of people, that's untrue.
Is it? I thought that was true.
No, none of that happened. It built and built and built into this thing, and for many years people thought it was true, but I actually did a lot of deep diving into this murder, and it was never like the whole myth about her being in the street and all this stuff is definitely mentioned, but that's not how she was murdered. They found her days later in her apartment.
Gotcha.
So. And then finally, I mentioned the Blockbuster, release thing and stuff like that. Eventually, this movie managed to pull in a whopping $260 million on
good.
Just DVD sales.
That sure is more than 30,000. That's a lot more than
Fuck
30,000.
Yeah. Cementing this as a cult classic.
Oh, yeah.
By far. And those are my fun facts.
All right. Well, like I said, I pretty much mentioned everything that I got here, so I think that's going to be about it for this episode of Cult Cinema Podcast. Of course, if you enjoyed the show, make sure to leave a like, subscribe to us we're on every platform, so whatever you prefer to listen or watch your podcasts on, I'm sure we're there. If you have any suggestions for what movies we should cover in the future, you can leave it in the comments if you're on YouTube or in your review on Apple Podcasts or anything like that. What do we know what we're doing for the next episode?
Yeah, and I also want to shout out some of our YouTube commenters.
Oh,
Thank
right
you so much. Yeah, we've had a few recent YouTube comments, so that's really fun. Thank you for taking the time to watch it, for sure. Next week, we're going to take it back to something kind of funny.
Okay.
And we're going to do one of my favorite movies, Whip It.
Whip It. Not one that I can say that I'm familiar with, so this will hopefully be interesting.
Yes, it's super fun. It's one of those like coming of age type films.
Okay.
But it stars Elliot Page, who was in Juno, and it's kind of along the same line as Juno. The way the director works with these actors and stuff, I think, is pretty similar. So.
Okay.
But I think you're gonna like it. I think you're gonna have a fun time.
Right on. Well, hopefully everybody tunes into that next episode. I don't know when this episode is coming out, but I know it was. When did our first episode come out? It was April something.
Like our first ever?
Yes. Because I know that we waited about a month or two before we actually started releasing stuff. I'm trying to see. Because I think by the time this episode comes out, we would have technically hit a year. Yeah, published April 30th or April 23rd, 2021. And by the time this episode comes out, it will be April 22nd. So by the time it comes out, we would have just been doing this for about a year, which is crazy.
It is crazy.
Of course.
Happy anniversary.
Yes. Of course, we do appreciate everybody who's been, consistently tuning into episodes, whether you comment,
Thank
or
you.
not.
Thank
just
you.
the fact that there are people out there listening, both in the States and across the world. We can see in the analytics that there's people all over the world that tune into the episode. While we do still have a small audience, it's cool to see that there are still just people in general tuning into the show.
Yeah,
which is
thank
amazing.
you. We love doing this. Obviously, we have lives outside of this, but
Yeah.
it's such a fun side project for sure.
Absolutely. All right. Again, make sure to follow us on Instagram. We're posting previews every time an episode goes up, so that way you get an idea as to what the next episode is going to be about, and it would kind of set the tone for you a little bit too.
Yeah.
All right. So that again is going to be pretty much it for this episode. We will see you in the next one.